This
Yeah,
conference will now be recorded.
yeah. Hi guys. I think let's get started. Am I audible?
Greetings, sir. We're audible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's get started. So in our previous class, we are discussing about the API, right? So what is API?
Application programming.
So API is nothing but it's an application programming interface. So it's a reusable piece of code, guys. Okay. So API means it's already a collection of program which performs a certain task is called as an API. All right. So next one. So we have taken one example. So assume that there is an open browser API. So once you call this API, right? So what happens? It will open the browser. You wanted to click on some submit button. So the we have for click to click on a button, there is an API. Okay. So click is the API. So all these combination of APIs, collectively form, we call it as a framework. Okay, so what is Selenium? Selenium is nothing but it's a testing framework. It has got multiple APIs within the Selenium. In the Selenium, there are n number of testing related APIs. So we'll be using those Selenium APIs and we'll be performing the automation testing. Now, so in order to write a program, so we need to have some programming language, right? So in order to automate this, in order to run the programs, okay? So all the APIs, to call the APIs, Selenium APIs, we need to have some programming language. So that programming language we are dealing it with Java, okay? So Java is nothing but it's a programming language, and here the combination what? Selenium is the testing framework and Java is the programming language. So with these two combinations, so we'll be using automation testing. So we'll be performing the automation testing for our test cases. Okay. So any questions you have? So before I start the today's session? No,
No,
right?
sir.
So let's continue. So today we'll discuss more about Java, guys. So we all know that Java is a programming language, right? So Java is an object-oriented programming language. Okay, so what type of programming language is Java? Java is an object-oriented programming language. So basically, there are two different types of programming languages, guys. There are two different types of programming languages. One is procedure-oriented programming language. The other one is object-oriented programming language. Java is what? Java is an object-oriented programming language. If you take example of C language, you might have heard C language, right? C is the procedure-oriented programming language. Java is an example for object-oriented programming language. So what do you mean by object-oriented programming language? So why we are calling Java is an object-oriented programming language? Because it follows object-oriented principles. The reason why Java is called object-oriented programming language is because it follows object-oriented principles. We call it as OOPS principles. Okay? So the reason why we call it as Java as an object-oriented programming language is because Java follows object-oriented principles. Okay. So now what are these principles? First of all, what is the principle, guys? Yeah. What is the principle? Principle means a rule, an instruction is called as a principle, right? So Java follows certain object-oriented principles. So we'll understand those principles. Okay. The first object-oriented programming language principle is class. Have you heard this class anytime before? Have you heard this class? Something class, class, object, inheritance, polymorphism. So all these are object-oriented principles. All right. Now let's understand what is a class. A class is nothing but it's a representation of real world entity. What is a class, guys? A class is nothing but it's a representation of a real world entity. Now, what are real world entities? Hmm. Examples: book, pen, student, customer, etc. Okay, so these are real world entities. So now, in any programming language, if you wanted to represent real world entities, you are supposed to create a class. Okay, now I'll tell you one thing in Selenium. Every Selenium Java program that should include in a class. So whatever the logic that you write for automation purpose. Okay, say for example, you are executing login test case. That login test case has to be embedded in a class. You have to write all your logic where you have to write it in a class. So what is a class? Class is nothing but it's a real representation of a real world entity. Examples: tree, book, pen, student, customer. So all these are the real world entities. Now example, let's take one example: class customer. So what are the properties of the customer? What are the properties of the customer? Customer will have first name, last name, state, city, zip code, okay, age, gender. So all these are the properties of a customer, right? So in order to represent these properties of a real world entity, we write a class. Simple, guys. Very, very simple. So you wanted to represent some real world entity in your program. How do you represent that real world entity in a program? You have to write a class for that. Okay. So example we have taken is a class. So class is nothing but it's a representation of real world entity with its properties. Okay. Class is nothing but it's a representation of real world entity with its properties. All right. So example, we have taken tree, book, pen, student, and customer. So now we have taken one example. Class is a customer. So what are the properties of a customer? The customer properties will have all these things: the first name, last name, age, gender, state, city, and zip code. Okay. Now what is age, guys? Age is a property or age is something calculation. See, age should be calculated, right? With some logic. What's the input for age? What is the input for the age? Okay, so collection of properties and methods. You're getting the point. So class is a representation of real world entity with its properties. Technically, class is a collection of properties plus and methods. Okay. So what is a method? Properties means, see, first name, last name, gender, state, city, and zip code are properties. I understand that. Now what is a method? Method is something, it is used for some calculation purpose. Example, age is age. See, age of a customer this year, the customer age can be 20 years. Next year, after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years, it keeps on changing, right? Age has to be calculated. See, first name is equal to, say, for example, first name I have given it as Rama. It is always the same. First name will be always Rama. But whereas coming to age, if I give age as 20 years, do you think age will remain the same? No, age has to be calculated. Means there is certain logic that has to be performed in the age. So this type of things are called as methods. Method has some, within this you will write some code. In this age you will write some code. So these are also called as methods. These are also called as functions also. Okay, so technically, what is a class? A class is nothing but collection of properties and methods. Okay, so there are two types of classes. Okay, we will come back to that. Any questions on the class? See, this is very important, guys. When you frame a program in your Java, so you should know what is a class. If you want it, see in our test case, when we write a test case, right? Our test case is also a class. So to represent our test case, we will write it in a class. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, so let's move on. Now, next important object-oriented principle is object. Have you heard this object anytime, man? Anytime? No. Okay. So an object is nothing but it is an instance of a class. What is object? Object is nothing but it's an instance of a class. See, a class, okay, it's a customer. Now I wanted to create two customers. The first customer name is Krishna. The second customer name is Shiva. Assume that. So I wanted to create two customers. How will you create customers? In the form of objects. See, customer is nothing but it's a class is nothing but it's a blueprint, guys. It's a blueprint. If you wanted to create a real customer, you have to create an object for this particular class. You have to create an object for this class customer. Then only the customers are created. So for that reason, it is called as an instance of a class or instantiation of a class. What is instantiation? What is instance or instantiation? Anyone? See, in general, I'm asking you. I'm not asking you in terms of the programming language. What is an instance?
Some sudden reaction.
So can you be on mute, please? From disturbance, Sindhu. Be on
Some
mute.
sudden.
Sindhu, can you be on mute? Yeah. I see some disturbance from you, Sindhu. Okay. No problem. No issues. We will discuss. Okay. So instantiation means allocation of memory. Allocation of memory is called as an instance. Okay. Instantiation. Instantiation is allocating memory is nothing but instantiation. Okay. So now, say for example, now we have a customer class. Okay. Now I wanted to create two customers. One is Krishna. This one customer. So now this is called as an object. So you will create an object if you wanted to create a customer. So that what is the name of the object? The object name is Krishna. I wanted to create another customer. You will create object. Okay. So that is Shiva. How to create? How to create instances for the class? You are supposed to create objects if you wanted to create a customer. Okay, so now object one, first object is customer. First object name is Krishna. Second object name is Shiva. Basically, if you wanted to create the customers, you are supposed to create the instances for this particular customers or objects for this particular customer. You got the difference, guys? See, the class is nothing but it's a blueprint. Class is nothing but a blueprint. When you create an object, then you are allocating some memory for that particular class in the name of an object. Okay, let me tell you one example. Okay, you have a resume, guys. You have a soft copy of your resume. Okay, assume that you have soft copy of your resume. Now you wanted to apply for 3 companies. So how many printouts you will take it? You will take 3 printouts, right? So the soft copy is nothing but a class. The printout, each copy of printout is nothing but an object. You're getting it? This is the basic understanding. Okay, so now how will you create an object for this particular customer? There is a signature. Okay, so name of the class, after that name of the object is equal to, you will use new operator and you will call the customer method. Okay, so we'll come back to this, but I'm just giving you a heads up. So if you wanted to create an instance for this particular customer class, there is a signature or the syntax. This is a syntax name. So name of the class, name of the object is equal to, new is an operator. So what is new? It is used to create an object. This is called as constructor, guys. So we haven't discussed about this constructor, but we will discuss it. Customer is nothing but there should be a method with customer name. Every class will have a constructor, means it's a method. I've told you, right? So what is a class? Class is nothing but collection of properties and methods. So with the same name, there will be one constructor or one method. So you need to invoke that constructor. Okay, so I'll give you the syntax. Tell me the syntax to create object. So name of the class name space object name is equal to new class constructor. So this is a syntax. Example, customer Krishna, new customer. Now I wanted to create another object with Shiva. So now tell me, guys, I wanted to create an object for this customer class. How to create? Tell me. Anyone?
Customer Shiva.
customer, Shiva. Always and always, objects, there is a convention, guys. I'm sorry to tell this now. It should always start with small case. Okay. So the class name should always start with capital letter. The object name should start with a small letter. Okay. Next, new.
You customer.
This is the constructor, the class constructor. Okay. We'll discuss about the class constructors. It is very simple, but don't worry. So this is a syntax. Now I wanted to create another object with Rama. Name of the class Rama equal to new constructor. End with a semicolon. Every line in the Java ends with a semicolon. Okay. So
Rama
this is how.
in small letter you say.
Sorry.
Rama. Small letter.
Yes. Uh, it's not mandatory, guys. You will not get any error. It's a convention. That's how we should follow the conventions. Okay. Now, next time. So this is very important question in interviews. Object-oriented principal concepts. So what is a class? What is an object? What are object-oriented principles? What type of programming language is Java? So all these are interview-related questions. Okay. So take some notes, guys. Keep a side heading Java. Okay. So below that, you write Java is an object-oriented programming language. Very important. Very important. Okay. I don't know how many times you will go through this, but at any point of time, so if I ask you what are the object-oriented principal concepts, what type of programming language is Java, so you should be in a position to answer this. Besides reading Java, Java is an object-oriented programming language. Okay. Next line. The reason why Java is called an object-oriented programming language, OOPL. I've written this. OOPL means object-oriented programming language is because it follows object-oriented principles. So make a note of this second point. You're done with this. Keep it side heading. One more side heading. Object-oriented principles. The first one is the class. Okay, so keep a side heading. Object-oriented principles. Or concepts also we call it as. writing this. The first one is class. Okay, under the class, right? Class is nothing but it's a representation of real world entity with its properties and methods. So copy till this point. Fast. You have to be fast, guys. Example: tree, book, pen, student, customer, etc. So after that, syntax. After example, you keep a side heading syntax, syntax of the class. You can take this. So tomorrow I'm going to ask you the object-oriented principle concepts. So you should be knowing this. You should be in a position to answer the questions. Okay. So this is for lifetime, guys. In your lifetime, till you are in your software field, you should not forget these concepts. That much important it is. So after doing this, take object. The second concept is object. Object is nothing but it is an instance of a class. So instantiation is allocation of memory. Is allocation of memory or is allocating memory. Take the syntax and examples. Let me know once you are done with making a note of these points. Okay. Done. Once you are done, let me know.
Yes, sir. Krishna, what about you? You're done, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, let's continue. So there are two different types of classes, guys. Abstract classes and concrete. class, abstract class and concrete class. So make a note of this point also. There are two different types of classes. One is abstract class and concrete class. Okay, we'll come back to this abstract classes and concrete classes. So after some point of time. Okay. Next, the third important object-oriented principle is inheritance. After making a note of that, so just listen to the concept. Okay. So now, in general, what is inheritance, guys? What's the meaning of inheritance? In general, meaning of inheritance. Inheritance. Have you heard this anytime before?
Including
Hmm?
access plans to family.
Okay. A child inherits qualities of parents. So no, a child will inherit certain properties or the texture, the qualities of parents. Yes or no? Inheritance means acquiring something which is already there. You are getting something which already exists. Okay. The classic example is father and the son. People say that child is also behaving like a father because he has inherited qualities of father. Okay. So inheritance means reusing. Before I give the definition. So for example, there is an API called as add API, multiplication API, division API. Okay, assume that there are three APIs. So in which class there is a class, in the class arithmetic. In that arithmetic class, there are three functions, okay, or three methods: addition, multiplication, and division. Okay. Now you are calculating each. Okay. So what is how to calculate each? Age is nothing but date of birth, year plus date of birth, year. Okay, I'm sorry. How to calculate the age? Current year minus date of birth year. Yes or no? Or no?
Yes.
Now there is assume that there is a subtraction method also. Okay. Now current year minus date of birth year. So there is already a subtraction method. Okay, so directly you cannot do this. Okay, you will use subtraction method which is already there with current year and date of birth as the parameters. Okay, so there is already a method. What is that? Subtraction method. Okay, you will use that subtraction method by passing current year and date of birth year. So these are nothing but the parameters. When you pass certain properties to a method, so these are called as parameters. What are the parameters here? Current year and date of birth year are the parameters. Subtraction is the method. Now see, again you will not implement this, guys. Yes or no? Hello. See, something is already there. Now I wanted to calculate simple interest. What is the formula for simple interest? TTR by 100, right? T into R, principal time rate of interest by 100. Okay. So there is a multiplication method which already exists. So you will use this multiplication of what? multiplication of principal, time, and rate of interest. So once you pass this, you will get the multiplication of these three things. Everything you are trying to reuse. Okay, so you will not again implement this multiplication API which is already there. So something is already there. Is it good to reuse it, or is it good to create it again? Hello. Some methods are already there. You will reuse them, or you will ignore them and create again new things. You have to reuse them, right? So how will you reuse those things? By using inheritance concept. Okay. So inheritance is nothing but reusing existing properties and methods. It's called as inheritance. So if something is already there, reuse it. Don't try to create it again. Don't write a new logic. If something is already there, you have to reuse them. Okay, let me give certain examples. There is class A. In this class A, you have three properties. Property A, property B, property C. Okay? No. Class B. In the class B, I wanted to make use of these three properties. How will you do that? Class B extends class A. Okay. Property B, property B. Now, how many properties that B class will have? How many properties does this B class will have?
5.
Five properties. What are those?
Property A, B, C, D, E.
Yes, because the child, this is called as parent class. This is called as child class. Okay. So, child is inheriting. The class B is inheriting from class A. So, for that reason, class B will have its own properties plus the properties of class A. Both the things it will have. Class A properties it will have, and also class B properties will have, because class B is extending or inheriting from class A. So this is how you should reuse in your class. If something is already there, so that property will be there in some class, right? In your class has to extend that class or inherit from that class. That's it. This is called as inheritance. Okay. So what is this class? Class A is parent class. Class B is child class. Okay. Make a note of this part, guys. Inheritance. This is also very, very important. Child class will have its own properties and parent class properties also. Okay. Done, guys? Once you're done, let me know, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes.
I'll give you a small, twist in this. Okay. So assume that in class A, see every class are of divided into two types. One is public class, one is private class. Assume that the class A is public. Okay. So class B extends class A. Okay. Now what happens? This inheritance is possible only for public classes. So there is another type of class called as private class. Its inheritance doesn't, work for private classes. You can only inherit from public classes only. Okay. So make a note of that. Classes are of two different categories. That is public and private. Okay. We can only inherit public classes. Got it, guys? We can only inherit public classes. Private classes we cannot inherit. Okay. Now I'll write one more class, guys. Class C extends class B. Okay. Property X, property Y. Now how many property that class C will have? How many properties that class C will have? Assume that this is public, guys, not private, public. This is also public. Hmm? Hello.
7.
Total 7, right? Property A, property C, property D, property E, and property X and property Y.
Yes,
Getting the point. Okay.
yes, sir.
See, class C extends class B. How many properties that class B will have? Property A, B, C, D,
5.
E. So it will inherit from all those things. Okay. So keep aside heading types of inheritance. How many types of inheritances are there? Single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance. Okay. There is something called as hybrid inheritance also. Okay. So what is single inheritance? One parent, one parent class, and one child class. Example, class A and class B are the examples of single inheritance. One parent, one child. What is the example of this one? Class A, class B, class C. Tell me. Class A, B, C. Which comes under which category of inheritance? Hmm? One parent class and one child class is called a single inheritance. Hmm? Okay. Now let me give one example, guys. Class A, we have class A. We have class B. Okay. So class C extends class A, comma, class B. Are you getting this point? Class C is extending from class A and class B. Means what?
multiple,
This is multiple. Single child having multiple parents. Okay, getting the point? One single class is having two different parents. It's called as multiple. Multi-level means what? Example, something like this. Class B is inheriting class A. Class C is inheriting class B. One level. This is one level. This is another. A to B is one level. B to C is another level. So this is multi-level inheritance. A class having a parent and a child. Okay. What is hybrid? It's combination of multiple and multi-level is called as hybrid inheritance. Okay, so make a note of all these things, please. Keep us editing types of inheritance. And examples also you have to take after writing this single example. You have to take this. Just keep class A, class B in a diagrammatic form. Class A, down arrow, class B. Similarly, multiple example, multi-level example, hybrid example. Hybrid you can write it in this way. It's a combination of multiple and multi-level. So today we have discussed three concepts. Okay. So tomorrow we will be discussing three more concepts. Done, guys?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Done? Okay, good. So guys, just ping me on. Just ping me on this number. Okay. I'll create a group for you. +91 79935959933. I'll be creating a WhatsApp group for you guys. Okay. Make a note of this and ping me on WhatsApp. So that's all for the day, guys. So today, in a sense, I mean, before you come tomorrow session, I want you guys to go through all these concepts: class, object, and inheritance. So tomorrow we'll be discussing three more. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
these three you have to be very perfect, and these are very, very important interview questions. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the day. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.